Hello and welcome to Unleash with Megan, the podcast where we have conversations that change lives by diving deep into the art and science of living life, overcoming challenges, and sharing our stories. I'm your host, Megan Rovnak, and today it is my pleasure and honor to welcome Roy Cammarano. Roy is an internationally recognized speaker, a best-selling author, and the strategist behind some of the most remarkable business transformations of the last 3 decades. He has helped businesses scale to hundreds of millions of dollars in annual revenue, and now through his entrepreneurial development group, he equips leaders to scale with intention. He has helped business leaders across 6 continents, and he's here today to help us. Roy, thank you so much for joining us. Please tell us your story.
I am excited to be here, and as we discussed a little bit earlier in the preparation, my story is pretty simple. Young, good-looking, and trying to get rich. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Perfect.
Clearly, the 3 decades of experiences was a cute way of you calling me old, which I appreciate. It's just the way it works. No, I think everybody has a story, and I think that the way in which you tell your story can either be helpful or hurtful to people. And my only goal is to be helpful to people. So I've done a lot. You can do that when you're 68 years of age. You've done a lot. I've accomplished a lot. And like Hamilton said, I'm going to do so much more. Just you wait.
So. That's fantastic. 68 years old. First of all, I just would not have guessed. I would have expected that you started at about 10 for that 30 years of experience in helping people. And thank you again for joining us and sharing. So 6 continents. How did you start moving into other markets? What was it that got you to kind of where you are, how you're helping people, and then moving globally to do that?
I think that was, I would love to say that was intentional as opposed to accidental. But I think that you learn more from accidental things than intentional things. I want to be intentional in my life. So taking on a client and doing well domestically, then they say, well, can you help us internationally? Okay. And then it started out with only English speaking countries. That became really important. Or then it became countries that they had English speakers. And then it became countries where I could use a translator versus an interpreter, which are 2 very different things, which I did not know the first time I went internationally. I had a business card created, and I was at the time the chief operating officer, chief executive officer of a company. And I did not know that the interpreter wrote exactly what I wrote. But the word officer in Russia at that time, in 1989, was seen as not like KGB, like you were. So I would hand people my card and they would immediately turn off. And I did not understand it till the translator said, yeah, don't give out your card anymore. And I was like, well, the interpreter did. And they said, well, let me tell you the difference between a translator and an interpreter. And I was like, oops, I only want translators now. And that gave me also the insight that I picked my own translators when I went to countries like Japan, as opposed to allowing them to pick my translator, because if they're beholding to that person, their translation would be very different to me than what their real intent was. But when it was my translator, they could give me the real skinny, and more importantly, what the secondary conversations were going on. So I learned that quick, but I would never have known the difference between an interpreter and a translator until I made a mistake. So it was accidental.
Well, and our mistakes, the way that we learn so fast.
Yes. It's like, oh, don't want to do that again.
And as you were saying that, I started to think of just parallels in companies and businesses and organizations about the difference between interpreting and translating, and the difference between somebody else assigning somebody and you being the one that actually gets to make the choice.
Yeah, it's a great lesson. The EDG, Entrepreneurial Development Group, my mission statement is transforming entrepreneurial visions and intentions into organizational realities and results. And if you look at the English parallel between entrepreneurial and organizational, entrepreneurial visions, a lot of visions, and intentions, but they don't actually get the results. So transforming entrepreneurial visions and intentions into organizational results from a vision, okay, and results from the other. It becomes a really important distinction, because you don't spend a lot of time doing things that make people feel good. You spend a lot of time making people do good.
Yes, that's fantastic. And what a difference between making people feel good and getting people to do good. That's a big, people don't realize that sometimes.
Well, and I believe that people have to feel good feel rewarded, feel like they're contributing to something. And that's why I developed a tool called the 6 R's. The 6 R's is a tool that I've developed, and it's part of my new book that's coming out called The Entrepreneur's Toolbox. But it talks about the company, and then every department within the organization, then every person within the organization. So the role, what is the role of the company? What are the rules of the company? Often your values, right? We'll only do things that are legal, moral, and ethical. We'll only do things that contribute well to the environment, whatever they are. Your responsibilities to your relationship with your employees, your customers, your vendors, your community, what results you're looking for, so that you can put that out there. We're going to be a $100 million company that takes care of the globe, that becomes very much like a mission statement. And then what are the rewards? We're going to make a contribution back to people. We'll incent people. We'll do those things. So those 6 R's. Then you move it to the marketing department, the finance department, the customer service department. What's the role of that within this organization? What are the rules? What are the responsibilities? What are the relationships, right, between sales and accounting? How do we want to work together? And then what are the results and what are the rewards? And then to every position within the organization. What does this role mean? What are the rules of this? What are my responsibilities in this contribution? And when you understand that, from what the company wants to do to what every department wants to do to what every person wants to do, you're part of something that's much different in cultural impact than, I got a job and they're paying me $17 an hour or $25 an hour. I don't want to call, look at my age, but it's just a different way in which to look at it. You're not, there's a big difference between taking on a job, right, and taking on a learning experience.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between those. And as you were going through that, the word that came into my mind was cascading, right? Cascading down. There's a relationship. It's all connected versus
Correct.
This notion that I have a task, a function, and I go in and I just do my task and function, and I don't really understand how it fits or why it matters or how it's valued or what the value of it is. Truly being able to understand, here's my role, here's what I do, but really here's why I do it. Here's how it brings the organization to its ultimate intended purpose.
Yeah. So the 6 R's was designed to develop to work with other tools in harmony. One of the other tools is the what, why, how, who, when. What am I doing? Why am I doing that? How do I do that? Who do I do that with? When do you want it, right? If organizations would just do that every day, be clear about what they want, have people understand why they want it, give clear direction on how to do it, train people to do it well, right? And then improve upon it. Then know who they can depend upon and who's there. And then when they need to get done by, there's a significant amount of clarity. And then if you take it to the next level down, which is the learning styles of people, some people are what people. Just tell me what you want to do and get out of my way. Some people are why people. If I understand why, I will get that done for you. Some people are how people. I don't understand. You have to teach me. Some people are who else can I work with on this because I really like this. But everybody needs a when, right? It's that deadline, that ability to know what they're aiming for. And deadlines have to be negotiated, right? It can't be, I decided this morning at 11 a.m. And so by 2 p.m., everybody needs to have this done. I haven't communicated this with anybody, but now I'm mad at them for not having gotten it done.
Yeah, that's not going to work very well.
I watch it every day.
It doesn't stop it from happening. Whether or not it works doesn't stop it from happening. Yeah.
It's dysfunction, and I like to put the word fun in dysfunction. So
I'm going to use that one. I like that one.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing, I am a process person. I love when things are clear, categorized, checklist, a way to approach a problem, a challenge, an opportunity in a way that is process. You can be like, I need to do these 6 things. Do this one. Did I do it? Yes or no? Did I do this one? Yes or no?
Right.
Did I do it well is the next question, right? Let's just start, did I do it? And then we talk about how you can improve. But I think one of the greatest challenges, entrepreneurs certainly, but definitely from my experience, leaders in general, is sometimes there's so much to do, especially if you don't have a framework to work in and you just start going, you can get so lost, right? You get lost, you lose the forest for the trees because you're just so lost in all of the things that need done in the tasks in the day-to-day. I love what you have done with just the 2 you've mentioned so far to help people structure and have a framework that they can work in. Right. Now, was this something that you just woke up when you were 21 years old and you were like, this is it? Or have there been some hard-won lessons, some hard-learned lessons as you've gone through? And where did this come from?
Yeah, I think my first book called Entrepreneurial Transitions, right? I even have a copy of it somewhere here. I think that what I discovered with Entrepreneurial Transitions was I worked for lots of entrepreneurs. And in each instance, you're incredibly frustrated until I realized that all of my frustrations were exactly the same. I was like, wait a minute, it's it's Groundhog Day. This is happening again, and I need to learn something in order to not let this happen, right? So what I did is I categorized, the first person I believe to ever do this is I categorized the growth phases of entrepreneurial organizations to the behaviors of the entrepreneur. And then I connected that, as many people have done since, to human development, right? Crawling, walking, running, being able to get to another level, the infancy, puberty, adolescence, adulthood, those kinds of things. And what you really realize in doing that is that the skill sets to have a baby versus the skill sets to parent a baby versus the skill sets to teach a baby versus the skill sets to inspire a baby are very different skills. And they often, just because you're the father or the mother doesn't mean you possess the skills. So society teaches us that. They send them to daycare, right? They send them to school. They homeschool. There's lots of options today. The difference is that what you have to understand is what's your contribution and what are you trying to accomplish. I mean, oftentimes first-time parents are first-time parents, so they're learning how to be a parent as their child is learning how to be a child. So books help you, and you get that, and you get experiences, and you join groups, and you have other people, and that's what I wrote Entrepreneurial Transitions about, was a way for entrepreneurs and the people who work for entrepreneurs to really understand the behaviors, not get upset by them, but just deal with the reality of it. Right? There's currently, because the internet exists and there's so much information about how to change your mindset and how to improve your mindset and do those things, they come down to some very core differentials. It's not what happens. It's how you react to what happens. If you get mad at someone, that's you've lost control of your own emotion based on something they've done, not even you. So the conversations have to happen is that if you understand the behaviors in a segmented way and you can identify them, okay, then you can deal with them. It's not good, it's not bad, it's not right, it's not wrong, it's not normal, it's not abnormal, it just is. And then what I do with that, what are the skills I need to get to that point? And I have found that if I create an organized way for people to communicate, that's a whole lot more effective, right? So we've all learned that the difference between us and apes, right, are the opposable thumb and the ability to cognitively communicate, right? I'm pretty sure the opposable thumb is the only one that's an advantage, okay, because my ability to communicate is there. So I created some tools. I started out with a tool called Open, Honest, and Direct. I want you to be open, honest, and direct. And so I was in a seminar. In a boardroom, I guess it would be called, and I had 8 people in the room. They were all male at the time, and I was talking about open, honest, and direct as the rules, and we were having a fairly contentious conversation about what was right versus who was right, kind of deal, and that led me to developing a different tool. But I'll get back to the story. And all of a sudden, I turned around to write on the board. And I heard this grunting and groaning and things falling over. And I turned around and they were wrestling, 2 50-year-old men wrestling. And I said, we broke it up and they sat down. I'm like, what the hell happened? They said, well, you said be open, honest, and direct. And he's a blankety blank. Well, he's a blank blank. I said, hold on. When I say open, honest, and direct, let me give you a denominator in a positive, nurturing environment. Okay. So I created on the spot the positive, nurturing environment because that deals with how humans communicate, right? I have my words and I have the tone in my words, and then I have the physiology of my words, right? So, and we all use them in different ways, but science has taught us that 58% of your intended communication message comes from the physiology, 55 rather, 38 comes from tone, and 7% comes from the words. And we constantly hear people saying, let me choose my words carefully. Well, your tone just gave away that you're not happy, so I'll be okay with that. And the fact that you just picked up a baseball bat, either in real life or in, it's like you're going to hit me with it. So 93% chance your words are going to be disingenuous because you're going to say, now we need to learn nicer. That's not what you mean. You mean pay attention, right? So what you do is if you can learn the 3 components of communication, verbal, tone, and physiology, learn to manage those effectively, and then have this rule of open, honest, and direct in a positive, nurturing environment. And over the years, the open, honest, and direct, positive, nurturing environment have never changed, but people's interpretation of them have changed. And today, the interpretation is be authentic and be kind. Whereas a few years ago, it was transparent and nice, right? Today, it's be authentic and be kind. And if you can be authentic and be kind, then you can actually have real conversations with people. Provided in the conversations, you're really going into a conversation in a way that you don't need to be right, but you need to do what's right. And I developed another tool, right, that exists, right? So it's, you know, the 6 C's, right, of communication, which I break down into conflict and competition. You're having an argument, and organizationally, you're going to fail because your argument is trying to determine who's right. Then you can have a conversation, and if you all conversations, you'll succeed. But it's about compliance and conversation about trying to determine what's right. But if you really want to prosper, you're going to cooperate and collaborate. And if you do that, you're doing what's right. It's a discussion. So you can have an argument, you can have a conversation, or you can have a discussion. If you're having an argument, it's who's right, a conversation, what's right, a discussion, how to accomplish what's right. And I think if you do that effectively every time, trying to do what's right, that you're in a much better position than trying to be right. And that the 6 C's is in entrepreneurial the entrepreneur's toolbox as a tool. And I think when I do talks on this tends to get a lot of play because it becomes a tool that people can utilize. And the first thing I do is I say, take the tool and put it on the wall. So you put the tool and you put it on the wall. So the two people looking at it can't be on opposite sides. They have to be on the same side in order to see the same thing. So I eliminate the perspective problem, right? This is a 6. No, it's not. It's a 9. No, it's a 6. No, it's a 9, right? It's a quarter. That's a head. That's a tail. Anytime you're looking at it from an antagonistic viewpoint, you don't know what's on the other side. But if you're looking at it from the same side and you put it on the wall, then you're at least closer to looking at it, right? And if you realize that, well, let me tell you why I'm right, is competition. Let me tell you what you don't understand is conflict. Okay, so in your own languaging, if you begin to talk about saying, well, let me figure out a better way to explain it. I take accountability, and I'm talking about doing what's right, not I have to be right. Let me try and find a better way versus you need to listen better.
There's a huge difference between those two.
There's a huge difference between those two, right? So, and we talk a little bit about management versus other people in an organization, because managers have to allow people to help people, to encourage people, to demand from people to hit certain performance criteria. Well, so do coaches. But there's a big difference between I'm your manager and I'm your coach, just in the psychology of it. And there's organizations that have changed the title. They eliminated the title manager, made the title coach. The rules are pretty much the same, which is you have a group of people who you're responsible for you help them to perform at a much higher level, making sure they have all the knowledge, tools, and support to get to that point. That's the definition of a coach. It's really the definition of a manager, too. The difference is one's from a power position above, and the other one's in a position of below. So what do you want to do? You want to help people grow, or do you want to pull people up? I mean, what you want to do is push. It's easier than pull, and you don't want to create those conflicts. So organizations that just make that title, culturally, the cascade effect, as you said earlier, it becomes very different. Culturally, they're there to help each other. Go back to the open, honest, and direct, positive, nurturing environment. Go back to the am I helping you or hindering you. Go back to how you utilizing the 6 C's. How do we do what's right, not be right? When you begin to look at all of these things in harmony, and people can be held personally accountable by themselves to want to improve and be better versus want to be right, it changes the culture and the dynamics of the organization.
And having those tools that are externalized and documented and something that everybody can physically hold, see, talk about, putting them up on the walls, having them be part of meetings and conversations, right. That's truly how you can have a common framework for those conversations. I can't tell you how many times I've seen conflict and I've realized that the problem is actually people are using the same word and defining it differently.
Right.
And the conflict that can create by talking past each other it's when you realize it and then you help them realize it, the shift is amazing, but also just like watching them be kind of frustrated about the wasted time because that wasn't something that was already addressed. It's like, this is something that you need to do consciously throughout your organization and your life, right? It goes beyond businesses.
We develop really good skills on disagreements. We very rarely develop really good skills on agreements. And I think there's books on, the 4 agreements or things of that nature that really are enlightening for people. And what I have found in organizations is when you agree upon something, even the definition of agreement, like you and I can be having a conversation and we're going to say to each other, yep, absolutely, all of our customers are green, they're wonderful, we love our customers, and we say green, great. And I leave and I'm doing turquoise and you leave and you're doing Kelly green. They don't look the same to the customer, do they?
Right.
So getting really clear definition of what we agree to becomes just as important as our great skill at knowing what we don't agree on. You know? And there's that phrase that we all use, let's agree to disagree. No. Let's not. Let's agree to compromise on something we can both agree upon, but to agree to disagree means at a fundamental level, we're still in disagreement. You can't build, that's a weak foundation. How do you build off of a weak foundation? You can build to a certain level, and then what happens? It falls apart. And then entrepreneurs live Groundhog Days. Every 6 months, they're doing the same thing, wondering why it didn't change, because they haven't utilized the new tools to change. They haven't, I tell in my speeches all the time, in my talks, in my one-on-ones, I know exactly what your customer wants. It's really simple. They want whatever it is you do better. They want to get it faster, and they want it to be cheaper than it is today. That's it. So you, as a person delivering solutions, need to make it better. You need to figure out a way to get it faster, but you better do it different. Because it's the only way that the cost effectiveness can get there, right? And you have to be clear that certain industries have trained you to not necessarily want it cheaper, right? If the features are there and the iPhone comes out, but iPhone has figured out that they have a price point acceptability of somewhere between $700 and $1,100 or $1,200 for the new iPhones, and they haven't changed that in years, right? And so, if you were smart and every time you bought an iPhone, you took the same amount of money and put it into their stock, you would never have to worry about paying for an iPhone again. You'd have plenty of money. But we don't think that way. We don't think that way. So, when I say we, I mean me included.
So you used a word earlier that I want to come back to that I feel people don't use often enough. And I'm just going to share a quick story about when I started using that, right? So I was in the federal government for 21 years. And I incorporated kindness. People, especially as I would move up in the different organizations. And one of the questions I got, and I had already developed this, so I think they were pretty surprised when I answered it quickly. What are your personal principles, or what are your leadership principles? And I had 3 at one point, and I moved to 5. Mine were leadership, unity, communication, kindness, and excellence. And so I spelled lucky with an E at the end, right? Very neat. But when I said kindness, the first time as I was trying to articulate this so that I could explain it to other people, and I shared it with colleagues at other agencies and in the same organization, I got a remarkable amount of pushback at using the word kind. Mm-hmm. They were like, that doesn't have anything to do in the workplace, and that's not a. And I was like, what do you mean? We spend how much time here? This is who we're spending our time with. And the number of times I've had to explain, because you talked about nice versus kind, and the number of times I've had to explain to people the difference between being nice and being kind, because they're very different. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. I love that that's part of what you talk about, and that's part of what you incorporated. And I wish more people understood the value and implemented it in the way, not just the way they think and who they are and how they act, but the words they use and how they talk about it.
That's why it was called positive nurturing environment, because without that, it's just antagonistic and people argue and fight, right? It becomes an antagonistic situation. Everybody wants to be right. And I think culturally, as I described, it started out as open, honest, and direct, then added to open, honest, and direct in a positive nurturing environment, and then went to another one. And now it's be authentic, right? Be transparent was the one before that. Be authentic and be kind. You have to realize that the workforce has changed, that the hierarchical components of post-World War II have been changed now, and baby boomers were able to tolerate one thing, and Gen X another, and millennials the different one, and Gen Z the next. And what's going to happen is, what you have to realize is that because of the global way in which people can make money in the economy, if you need employees, you're going to have to be very, very clear about what's going on. Now, I was president of a public company, and at one time I had like 13,000 people on a global basis reporting to me, doing things on 4 continents in that instance. And I realized there was no way I could hire and train enough people. And I have a tool for that. It's called the STAR chart. How do you become a star? Recruit, orient, train, educate, retain, and it's in a star. And it's for customers. How do you do it? How do you recruit a customer, orient a customer, train a customer, educate a customer, and retain a customer? How do you do it for vendors? How do you do it for employees? Because if you have an organized process, and recruitment is advertising, marketing, influencers, orientation is making sure people understand how to interact with you and do business, both your employees, and so it goes through. And it's fairly logical on how you get there. Well, I became at a point where saying there's no way I can hire enough people. So I wrote a book called Creating Do-It-Yourself Customers, because I believe that you had to translate to making your customers better than your employees, because I didn't think you could ever train an employee to meet that customer expectation in the future of better, faster, and cheaper. So if I can get the customer to do the work and like me better, right? So it comes, the denominator there is how great customer experiences build great companies, right? It really becomes a different way of viewing it. And we all do it now, right? We all do it now. You do it now. There's self-checkout. Nobody likes self-checkout, but it's going to, the next generation of people will love self-checkout because it gets there. The going, sending in your information to Starbucks ahead of time, right? So that they have the thing done, right? The technology, going to a McDonald's and putting in your own order, paying for it yourself, walking up and somebody hands you something, you haven't interacted with another person, right? So you've done all the work. Your online banking. When was the last time you were in a bank, right? Your online buying an airline ticket. That didn't exist when I started writing the book, right? That has evolved over a 20-year period of time. What will the next 20 years be? Because, right now, obviously, we can all talk about AI as if we know what we're talking about. But the bottom line is that we don't know what we're talking about. But we better darn well master it if we plan on being competitive in the future. Because it's not the fact that it's coming, it's already here. It's already displacing lots of people, but it's not displacing people in the manner in which people think, right? It's going to take us to a very different level, and it will change the economy, right? I think more people will go back to blue-collar jobs than white-collar jobs. We failed miserably at the white-collar job transition, right? Be a coder. Oops. We have no plumbers, no electricians, no construction infrastructure. And now these people are demanding $150,000, $200,000 a year, starting salaries in some of the blue-collar lives. It's like, that's not bad. And when I grew up, all of my uncles were plumbers or electricians or masons. I got to be a mason's assistant. I didn't know that meant I carried the bricks at 13.
When you agreed to it, that was not disclosed.
Mason's assistant sounded really good. Carrying 70 tons of bricks, 200 yards in wheelbarrows and, 40-pound bricks for masons. So I learned early.
Yeah, that doesn't sound nearly as good when you describe it that way. Words matter.
Words matter, exactly.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you so much. I've talked to you before. I am so grateful for all of the things I've already learned and so many more things I'm going to be able to learn, and just the things that we've talked about today. A thing that really coalesced for me in this conversation was how important it is to not reinvent the wheel. Just go learn from someone that has already done it. Like, you just rattled off enough knowledge in 15 minutes to save someone, I'm not kidding, people that are listening to me, millions of dollars in frustration, mistake, lost hours, reinventing wheels that you do not need to reinvent. And these are such practical tools, right? This isn't theory. What you were talking about, that's not just this theoretical, conceptual, you need to be authentic. Great. Right? That's a word, that's an idea, that's a concept. That's not a here's how you do it. And what I love about what you do in your books and your talks and the things that you bring to the table and you share with people so readily, so willingly, and so genuinely is actual tools, right? It's the difference between go build a house and here's a hammer, here's how to use it. Here's a saw, here's how to use it. Here's how you make blueprints, like actual real tools.
Well, there's a book called Steal Like an Artist, which I would recommend everybody reads. I did not write it, but I love it. Wish I had written it. But Steal Like an Artist, because it tells you exactly the same way. Utilizing AI now to say, be my coach and do those things. We always talk about mentorship, but I always talk about being a Sherpa. And the stakes of having the stakes of a Sherpa at the top of Mount Everest is very different, right? You could get a theoretical display. Some guy in a building in San Francisco does a theoretical model, does this. They say, okay, just follow this path and you'll be able to climb to the top. You'd be a fool to follow that you'd be a fool not to have a Sherpa. So the mentorship and having a Sherpa is there because the consequence for failure on Mount Everest is death. The failure for consequence in not having a Sherpa in your business is a different kind of death. If you don't want to die, get a mentor, get a guide, get a teacher, get a board member, get a Sherpa, right? But I like Sherpa because the stakes of Sherpahood are very different. When they say put your foot here, you put your foot there. And along that line, when I'm working with clients, I have 3 areas that I talk to them about. I have opinions. Just like everybody else, I have an opinion. Don't listen to me on my opinions. Then I have suggestions. You should really listen to me because I'm 85% sure that this is there. And then I have recommendations. Don't listen to that, you die. And it's the same as put your foot here, not there. Because if you put it there, you don't know, but you're going to fall to your death. Same thing. So get a Sherpa who's been there, who understands it, who, I'm going to say this nicely, whether you like them or not, once they've earned your trust because they've been successful there, is get to that point. But just like a teacher, there are very good elementary school teachers who I love dearly, who at the high school level would not have been good. Mrs. Roll in 4th grade is probably the teacher I identify as being one of the most important, and we had to read Helen Keller. And that's where I developed the life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. But what I was most impressed with Helen Keller was her guide. How did she know what was being said? The real impressive person there may or may not have been Helen Keller, but it certainly was the woman who was her guide. Find those people who can be your guide and then be a guide to somebody else. Because the best way to improve upon something is teaching somebody something.
I could not agree with you more. And I love the analogy with the Sherpa. And I think people believe that means they have to go find somebody and hire them. And they have to know them personally and they have to talk to them on a regular basis. And when you can do that and you're able to do that, that's wonderful. I think sometimes people forget when you read somebody's book and follow the things in the book, right, they're now your mentor. They're now they're now the person helping you. When you watch them on YouTube and do the things that they're telling you to do.
Here's one thing I said in my book, Entrepreneurial Transitions, was there's nothing more dangerous than an executive just returned from a one-day seminar. Because they only know a fraction of it. They don't know the in-depth portion of it. And today I can take 15 one-day seminars with 3-minute Instagram talks and one long-form YouTube video and feel like I know everything. What you really want to do is not be a science experiment with your people, but work with your people. So what you really want to do is you really want to understand something, right? Identify it, understand it, and then you can make the changes. But truly, if there's things intuitively that you know, which is different than emotionally that you know, acquire skill sets. And what the internet today allows you to do is to sign up for Simon Sinek stuff. I mean, it's the most incredible stuff in the world. I love Simon Sinek. Mm-hmm. Mel Robbins, and these people are giving you practical, real information about how to get there. You know, the utilization of ChatGPT or any of the other ones is the Be My Coach. Just continually talk to it. It knows everything about you. It does, and then it says, give me the 10 hard lessons I need to learn in order to improve. And then you don't like it as much as you did before, but the problem is you continue to train your bot to teach you what you're doing, and then it becomes there. So we all have access to it. If you have a phone that has ChatGPT on it, you have some of the greatest coaches in the world at a difference between you asking it a great question or asking it a good question. Don't be afraid to ramble when you're talking to your AI, because it will interpret all of those things and give you practical ways. And then don't blindly follow it, but deal with it, prioritize it, and then ask AI, in order for me to do things based on everything you know about me, what new skills do I have to acquire? Or what do I need to refine? Or what kind of coach would I need to get? Or what kind of course would I have to take? And suddenly, if you're willing to invest in yourself, the universe will find ways to invest in you.
That's perfect. You know what? That is a beautiful, I want people to take that away. because I think that a lot of people don't take that time. They mean to, they think to, they want to, but they have to do, not just want to. You got to add the do on the end of that.
Yeah.
So
They get to do. We talked at one time, and I think in the presentation, because I use it quite often, is we have these to-do lists, and a to-do list needs prioritization, and then needs dedication. It becomes a to-do list. So you don't have to do it; you get to do it. I went to the grocery store earlier today, and absolutely, did I get the wrong yogurt? Yep. But when I bought the yogurt, I thought I was doing the right thing. Since found out I'm not doing the right thing, but we'll get to that later. It's a matter of you get to pick the right things, to make the right ingredients, to really enjoy and have a nutritious life, right? So when you're picking ingredients for your life, pick the ingredients that add to your nutrition. As don't take it away. If it doesn't add to your piece, don't do it.
I'm no longer going to have a to-do list. It's going to be my pre-to-do list until I finish it, and then it's my to-do list.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, because it's prioritization. It's what do I really want. It also helps you really define things in manners of what's important and what's not. We talked a little bit earlier about the fact that I've done a lot of. I've gone as an interim executive 11 times, right? So I come in and these are big successful organizations, or most they can't hire me if they're not successful. So, but they want to be more successful. One of the first things I do is I just stop having the administration and accounting department put out reports. Because Peter Drucker said there's nothing so useless as doing well that which does not need to be done at all. So sometimes it's like, why do you have this? Why do you have this? I don't know. Sales uses it. Go to sales. Why do you use this? What is it? What's the thing that you asked for? I didn't ask for that. I don't even know why I get it. I get it every day. It's stupid. I don't pay attention to it. Well, meanwhile, we've hired 2 people in accounting to provide this information for sales that they don't use and never ask for. Well, how did you get it? Oh, we had a project like 11 years ago, and in that project, we needed this information, so the accounting department has to do it. Well, there's a great story, right, which is to take it down to the practical level. Little girl says, Daddy's favorite meal is meatloaf. I want to make him a meatloaf. And mother says, okay, great. Let's put together. So they get the thing, they do this, they do that, they make all the ingredients, they put it together, and then the mom says, okay, then we cut this part off and we make a hamburger out of it. Little girl says, why do we do that? And she goes, well, that's because that's the way your dad's mom used to do that. So she says, well, call. I want to know why Grandma made a hamburger, right? So I say, call Grandma. And they said, well, you did all this, you did all this, you did all this. Why did you do that? Why did you make a hamburger? She goes, oh, I didn't. Not all the meat would fit in the pan I had. So that was leftover. So I didn't want to waste it. So another woman, 30 years, is doing something because the pan was there. But if you've ever ridden a train, you rode the train because the width of the tracks are that which the Roman chariots went down. So we have traditions that we don't even understand. It. Like, is that the ideal width for a train? Because I'm thinking they should be a little wider because they're kind of rickety. Wow, why would we do that?
Yeah, it feels like they get top heavy. Like that's why they fall off the tracks.
Well, because and it was dragged by a horse, and it was only 2 people on it. It wasn't like they were getting higher. So that was an inherently flawed design square, right? So all over the world, we have 2 horses' asses from the Roman chariot. That is our railroad system. Okay. I'd like to revisit that.
Nobody bothered to go, maybe there's a better way somewhere in the middle from then to now.
Well, Elon Musk.
I love that you talk about the importance of taking away. I was just listening to a clip from a podcast today, and that was specifically about how to be a happier person. But I think that it applies across so many things, and it was that very thing. Becoming happier, first of all, being happy, and you talk about, the positivity and bringing that to your everyday. But being happy isn't something that happens because of external factors, right? That's an internal thing, which means you don't need anything externally to have that happiness because it's an internal thing. And the person was saying, if you want to be happier, don't think about the things that you want. Think about the things you can take out, right? Why are you having the stress? What's caused, there are things that you remove and you'll actually find that will help more and work faster and be better to implement than adding things. And I thought that was a fantastic realization that I hadn't translated that way into how I thought about it or talked to people about it until I heard that.
There's there are so many great speakers and great minds who come to the same conclusion, which is the skill to say no is more important than the skill to say yes. Simon Sinek talks about take it away, right? So he learned it from a shoe salesman, right? There's never have more than 2 pairs of shoes, because then you don't sell any. If you go to 3, then they don't pick one. It's so neither one of this. Which one would you like me to take away to bring a new one? Oh shit, that's a decision about which ones you're going to keep. And then there's just ways in which you have to look at things in prioritization and being able to say no. Alex Hormozy says no more than he says yes. Jeff Bezos says to say no. Peter Drucker, I think, said there's nothing so useless as doing well that which does not need to be done at all. And so you got to define what could I not do and my life would be okay. When you talk about people have the ability to do that, they do. They just don't know they do that. Most people move away from pain, not towards pleasure. So that's that comfort zone Tony Robbins talks about. In my book, The Entrepreneur's Toolbox, I talk about the 4 motivations: pride, fear, imitation, gain. 2 are external. Okay, fear and gain are external. If you don't do this, I'm going to fire you. If you do this, I can reward you, right? Those are also part of the 7 power bases of an organization, which is different. And then 2 are internal: imitation and pride. And we do lots of things at the beginning of our lives through imitation. We learn how to speak through imitation. We learn how to walk through imitation. There's lots of imitation that we do, and that becomes our primary learning. Then there's the difference between people who are externally focused, right? They get a compliment, and other people who are like, I don't give a fuck what you think of me, right? It's just, so it's pride. Pride is then that next level thing that we all want people who work with us who really want to do things based on pride. We're doing what's right because it's what right. It goes back to this, the 6 C's: cooperation, collaboration. We're going to do what's right. It's a discussion. And we all want to hold ourselves up to this standard. And then what we just really have to realize is that if we're being motivated because of external versus internal, that's the first warning sign, right? That we need to stop, assess, and say, what is going to add to my peace, add to my purpose, not provide me pain? Just make that determination. I'm not going to do it because it's painful. Well, people move away from pain. So what are you going to do? Well, I need to make more money. Why do you need to make more money? So I can buy a car. Hold on. You're going right back into the cycle, right? You're going. Mm-hmm. So you got to be careful. You got to learn. You got to figure out what you're willing to invest in yourself, what you're willing to invest in other people, and where the greatest return on your time is spent, right? So, we get to make those decisions for ourselves. And there's that comment, that it's all over the internet now. It says, you only live once. No, you live every day. You only die once. Snoopy, I think, is the one that I have in my phone that reminds me of that every 3 days or something. It pops up in some reel, so I remember it. Because you need information angels that tap you on the shoulder. Oftentimes we talk about intuition or that was so good. And we already know it, but it's nice to have that reminder. You say, thank you, information angel, because that's my reminder. So when you're seeing a lot of those things, it's because the universe is reminding you. It means that whatever you're doing, maybe you need to do more of things that you truly believe in versus things that other people are asking you to do.
And where you put your time, what you were talking about with where you put your time and how you invest. In the last 5 years, I've gone through so many very significant transitions. And over the last probably 2 years, something I started to realize and be able to articulate was it's not about time management, because I used to talk about time management all the time. Now I talk about priority commitment, because if you're clear on your priorities and you're committed to your priorities, your time will align with those priorities. Yeah. So it's not really about the time management. That's just the indication that you need to have priority, clarity, and commitment.
So one of my tools is, if you want to be known as a pro in any job, and everybody almost always does, the PRO stands for persistent, resourceful, and optimistic. Under the persistency part, TED Talks will tell you the most important distinction between people who achieve greatness and don't is that grit, is that never say die attitude. Well, that's persistency. Tony Robbins talks about it's not your resources, it's your resourcefulness, right? That takes you to the next level. So persistency, resourceful, and then optimism. There's so much information about optimism and the optimism bias and how you can accomplish things by looking for openings, not for trees. How you can do this. So if you want to be a pro, be persistent, be resourceful, be optimistic. And it becomes a really important part of what am I doing at a conscious level to be a pro. See, taking things to a purposeful level, the to-do list to a to-do list, the prioritization of items to do that gives me the amount of time that I need. Because I run companies, and in companies, there's only three resources. There's only three. No matter how big it is, no matter how it looks to you, there's only three. People, time, and money. Time is finite. How many days in a year? How many weeks? We know it just exists, right? It's just there. So that's not a competitive advantage. Money. Money in the form of cash flow, computers, tools, whatever assets you have. That's just money in providing it, right? So what's the real differentiation? It's the people, making sure the person has the knowledge, the tools, and the support to do the job you want them to do. Do they know what to do? Do they understand why they're doing it? Do they know how to do it? Do they know who they do it with? Do they know when to get it done by? If you can just get to that fundamental level of purpose, don't manage your personality, don't manage your performance, but manage the purpose, right? Which is the perfect combination of things in that triangle of greatness. You can really go to a very different level of accomplishment, which is really the difference in organizations is what are we accomplishing versus what are we working on? I hate what are we working on. That's an activity. You walk into, wait, what are you working on? Waste of time. What did you accomplish today? Oh, wait, this is a performance-driven organization. Oh my goodness, you mean I have to do something today? Yeah. You just talked to 3 customers. How many of those customers left delighted? What do you mean? What do you mean? They got what they wanted. Yeah, but they got what they wanted, so they're satisfied. But when they leave, are they delighted so they're going to tell somebody else about their experience? I didn't know that was my job. Sure you did. We defined that early in the recruitment phase when you came to us. Our goal is to delight every one of our customers. What are you doing every day to delight that customer? So I have 3 rules when I take over a company. Positive expectancies. It will work out because we will make it work out. Brilliance. Everything we do, we have a good reason for doing it, and we're going to continue to do that. Okay? So you have positive expectancy, brilliance, and accomplishment, not activities. We accomplish things. So when you suddenly break everything down into the simplest rules, is what you're doing right now in your own best interest? It's a great question. People ask, they go, oh, maybe I should do more.
And it was what you just said about the delight, how people feel when they leave, and that is a focus. I think a lot of people miss, and we've talked before about the difference between activity and actually accomplishment, achieving something, and how important it is to understand which one you're actually measuring and trying to measure and achieve and do. And when you were talking about, particularly about the delight, it popped into my head, the Maya Angelou quote, and I love it, is people don't remember what you say or what you do. They remember how you made them feel. And that lasts so much longer. Yeah. And you were talking about Simon Sinek. He is hands down one of my absolute favorite. I stop every time a reel comes across the social media or across my screen because he's full of great nuggets. And I just saw one today.
Yeah, join his community and go spend time in there, and it's spectacular. And that's the difference between what you just said, scrolling, right? Looking through stuff and hoping the right thing comes up to you versus joining places where you know the right thing exists. Mm-hmm. So go to the place that you know exists. The universe will provide to you, but some is good and some is bad. Why don't you just go to the places you already know are good and do more of that?
Yes, repeat actions that actually work.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, we went way over time because I could talk to you for hours, and I have a few. I know I personally am going to go back and watch this episode more than once because there was so much. I hope people take the time to do that, listen, go get your books, learn from you, connect with you on social media. Everything that I've learned every time I've talked to you, every time I've heard you speak, your reels come across my social media all the time. So I'm so grateful that you took this time and shared all of that knowledge with listeners today, tomorrow, and for the however much longer they're going to be listening.
It's a legacy conversation for me. It's a legacy conversation.
That it's a wonderful legacy. We appreciate it.
Thank you
very much.
Megan, thank you so much.
Absolutely. My complete pleasure. And hopefully we'll have you back on another time because there's so much we didn't even get to that I would love to talk to you about.
Excellent. Thank you. Wonderful. I'd love to be back.
All right. Great. So as always, thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you have a magnificent day, and we'll see you soon.